Thanks for checking this out. I'm not making these videos because people are interested in my process, but instead because I want content out. The KoFi, I'm gonna call it a coffee. No, I'm not. The KoFi looks a little barren, and I want to release something in between actual art pieces. And I also want to release stuff that's still related to Treasure Takers, the animation that I'm making about what else? People taking treasure, specifically people finding artifacts from our real world, though in the animation they're just called treasure because why not? And then selling that treasure to legally distinct knockoffs of the Pawn Stars because also why not? So I'm going to be posting these videos of me working on the project so that's related, but I'm going to rant over them with things that I've talked about to nobody. There are certain rants that I've made to empty rooms and my steering wheel a dozen times, and now I'm going to share them on the internet so they can be held against me later. What fun. Just kidding, but not really. This rant in particular is about a character from an anime called Bleach, and that character's name is Soifon. For those of you who aren't familiar, Bleach is an anime about a teenager who can see ghosts, and that draws him into all kinds of crazy spiritual conflicts, one of which being a conflict against an afterlife military organization known as Soul Society. This military organization is made up of ghost samurai, which is almost as cool as it sounds, and sometimes even cooler. And these ghost samurai are split into 13 different squads with a captain and vice captain. Soifon, the character that I'm going to be talking about, is a captain in one of the squads. And when she's introduced as, well, kind of a bitch. I mean, one of the things we see her doing is grinding her heel into the sternum of someone who might be a traitorous subordinate, might not be, it's not super clear, but it's played as unreasonable and kind of cruel. But here's the thing. Soifon deserves more credit because she has it so hard. The anime doesn't even get into it. But thankfully, for you anyway, I will. So this character, head of the second squad, wasn't always head of the second squad. We find out in the anime that her backstory is she was born into a family of essentially ninja. They dress in black, they do kung fu, they're stealthy, they're ninja. She's born into this ninja family in this weird afterlife of ghost samurai and whatnot, and is told, hey, you are supposed to live and die for this one noble family that exists in this world. That is your great purpose in life. That's what you're gonna do. And she was fine with that. You know, she was totally down with serving her purpose to the best of her ability. And honestly, that's all she knew. But in her backstory, she talks about how one day she saw the heir of the noble family that she was supposed to live and die for. This woman named Yoruichi Shihoin, and the family's called Shihoin, and the person's spoiler is a character in the show. Not a spoiler, I'm sure you know what Bleach is if you're listening to this, but there you go. And she remembered being kind of captivated by this person, and to make things even crazier, in her backstory, this heir to this noble family starts taking an interest in her, starts training her among other recruits, and then sometimes just training Soifon one-to-one. They even start hanging out, and depending on how you read a moonlit cuddling session in the backstory, either become romantically involved, or at the very least, extremely, air quotes, close. And that was really amazing, as likely it should be. But then one day, this person who took a great interest in her, so much so that Soifon was serving as vice captain to Squad 2, whereas Yoruichi was captain of Squad 2. Talk about a big promotion in life. One day, Yoruichi just disappears. She just ditches out, turns traitor, and abandons the place. And more importantly, to Soifon, leaves her behind, just abandons her. And the backstory obviously covers how emotionally devastating it must be to have the light of your life just ditch you. Never mind the fact that Soifon doesn't have other friends or people that she's close to, as far as the show gets into. There's even a game written by the dude who made the manga, and they have a part where they explicitly highlight that Soifon is particularly friendless. The game takes place in the past when Yoruichi wasn't a traitor, so, it's still relevant to the backstory. So, this is pretty terrible, and the anime covers this, but I feel like it gets so much worse if you just think about it for a little bit, and with some additional details. It's not just that she was abandoned by someone she loved, because that's bad enough on its own. But from that abandonment, she also has to step up, Soifon, and become captain of this squad now, which is uniquely stressful, not just because, hey, you're vice captain, but now you have to push down the feelings of abandonment and take command of a captain position. It's not just bad because I'm sure there are plenty of people who are looking at her wondering, hey, you were close in with the last captain. How do we know that you're not gonna turn traitor or be soft? But also because this squad has a special extra duty. You see, some of the squads have special functions in addition to their normal functions. There's a squad that's comprised mostly, or I think entirely, of healers and medics. Obviously they're important. There's a squad of first responders who are fight crazy people who just run in and are the first ones on the field of any battle, so on and so forth. But Squad 2, the squad that Soifon must now be responsible for, is the same squad that has control over something called the Punishment Division. The Punishment Division, by the way, is pretty literal. They're the people who punish other ghost samurai that violate the rules or detain dangerous individuals. They're the fucking police of the rest of the force, which means that not only is there increased pressure because if there's dissension in the ranks, it starts with you, but if it happens to start with you, then what about the rest of the military? If you don't come on with a firm grip immediately, that could have tremendous repercussions. In addition to the fact that, hey, you've just been bumped up to captain, also you're gonna have to be prepared to kill the traitor that you once loved if they ever, enter your field of vision ever again. Hope that you can manage that while also stuffing down those feelings you had. Okay, thanks, bye. By the way, you also have to achieve what is essentially Super Saiyan status as part of a rule with our military before you can even be a captain. I hope you were close to achieving that on your own. Okay, thanks, bye. Like that, God, that's pressure on top of pressure. And I really, really feel like, geez, that's rough. The Super Saiyan equivalent that I'm talking about is in the series, their swords have sword spirits inside them that you have to commune with and you can gain power from. There's a thing called Shikai and there's a thing called Bankai. Shikai is when you communicate with the sword spirit and partner with it well enough that you learn its name and then you can use that and the sword transforms and it has a special effect. Soifon has that and it's cool. Bankai is where you have to, again, over a long period of time, harmonize with the sword spirit to a different level, but in this one you actually have to force it to manifest, and then you have to beat it. You have to beat it into submission to earn its respect, and then you achieve Bankai, which is something that, according to the show, takes years to do. Both of these things take years to do. And as a vice captain, you are supposed to have Shikai at the very least. And if you have Bankai, you are a captain. Or rather, to be captain, you must have Bankai Or be that one guy who's the exception because he killed the previous captain and he's super strong, and are you gonna tell him no? Because I'm not gonna tell him no. Because there's always an exception. Soifon, not that exception. So that must have been tough. Because if you didn't already have Bankai, hey, now you gotta achieve it. By the way, pressure, pressure, on top of pressure, pressure, on top of pressure. It is, in my opinion, terrible. Never mind the fact she is also uniquely split among what I'm going to call the Shinigami arts. The Ghost Samurai are called Shinigami, by the way. They have techniques that are split into different categories, which I thought was really cool of Bleach, to have these formalized categories. There are plenty of anime that don't spend that time and just go, powers, they exist. Things. And then you go, okay, I guess. But in this, like, they're kind of... It's cool, but that's a side tangent. There are these set of movement techniques that are about dodging, leaving after images, and things like that for the most part people don't deal with, but because Soifon's fighting style is more of a, I'm not gonna get hit and I'm gonna hit you, also known as I'm a goddamn ninja, it makes sense. Obviously she's training hard in that. She is a hand-to-hand specialist, and that's, like, she's good with a sword, but clearly hand-to-hand is where the juice lies for her. Fitting, because the juice lies there for Yoruichi as well, and being a ninja plus looking up to someone who's a hand-to-hand specialist, it just makes sense. It must be incredibly difficult to compete with people who are sword specialists. If you are a fist specialist, trying to keep up with your dodging techniques, your movement techniques, and because of your position in rank, you have to be good with your sword and sword spirit. Not just good, great. Bankai is like the highest you can go. I mean, in an anime, obviously that's not the highest you can go, but essentially it is the highest you can go. So you gotta have that. You gotta be on point with your movement techniques. You gotta be on point with your swordsmanship, because obviously that's not gonna slide. And you also happen to be a hand-to-hand specialist. By the way, magic exists in this thing, and your position also has a special relationship with the magic of this world, so you gotta be good at that too. Get fucked. It's terrible. She must train super hard. I can only imagine what her training regimen is like, just to keep abreast of everything while still being good. And if that's not bad enough, politics. I already talked about how becoming a captain all of a sudden, I'm sure plenty of people questioned her loyalty, but there's something that I feel is a little overlooked, and I'm not gonna say justifies her being a bitch, but justifies her being a bitch. Oops, I said it anyway. And that's the fact that not only all the other stuff that I've just talked about, but in addition to that, she also has to fill the shoes of the previous captain, which alone would be difficult. With the stuff I already said, difficult still, with her split training regiment, more than likely, I'm making an assumption, more difficult, extra duties, more difficult, but she is not just trying to step into the shoes of any captain, she's stepping into the shoes of royalty, someone who is known as the goddess of flash, someone who's known as a genius at those movement techniques, and just generally incredibly impressive. And someone who's taller than her. That last part might sound a little weird, but go with me on this. In addition to not having a great pedigree behind her, other than the last captain thought it was pretty cool, she is also, Soifon, I mean, a short Chinese woman. And I hope it doesn't sound sexist saying this, but I'm sure that women already have a problem commanding respect in general, let alone with all the other stuff stacked against you and not having a special pedigree and also not being physically imposing. There are plenty of other captains that may or may not have trouble with authority, but like I would argue they have it easier. There are like 13 captains, including Soifon. 2 of them are the essential sons of the captain commander who everybody respects and runs everything. So obviously they're not going to have as big of a problem. There's the guy that I mentioned who killed the previous captain of his squad. He can just point at people and go, "I'll kill you too, motherfucker." And okay, done deal. One of the captains is a mad scientist who I assume can pretty easily just go, "I'm going to do terrible things to you in your sleep if you cross me. So cross me if you want." And I think that probably works for him. Obviously, the captain commander that I mentioned, everybody respects him already anyway. There's like a little kid commander who I'm sure has difficulty, but he's supposed to be a prodigy. And I say supposed to be. I'm sure he is. But he's got at least that going for him. There's another guy who belongs to a noble family and is acknowledged as pretty strong and powerful and whatever, so I'm sure he doesn't have any problems. The only other female captain, at least that I can think of, in the timeline that I am thinking of, happens to be the head of the healing division. And while I haven't been in the military, I have heard from people in the military, you don't disrespect the people that patch you up. And in universe, the Captain Unohana, as she is known, is uniquely capable of terrifying people, so I'm sure she's got some shit that, like, she can manage, clearly. There are other captains, they all have, I would say, no real problems as far as authority keeping goes when push comes to shove, but I would say that not having any special pedigree and also not being physically intimidating or imposing, don't get me wrong. Yoruichi, when captain of Squad 2, was not physically intimidating. Like, she wasn't like super buff or anything, but at least she was like tall and athletic and from a noble family and a genius. Like, she has all these things. My point is, Soifon does not. And I would argue, if you're coming into this squad, which is responsible for keeping order of the other squads and normal squad duties, and you're trying to be strong in the face of abandonment and keeping all this together, what are you more likely to do? Go, well, I'm just going to be honest and straightforward and hope that people accept me? Or walk in, make clear that nobody messes with you and you're not given an inch? Honestly, I think the second one makes way more sense given the circumstances, which is a bummer because now she is forever known as a bitch, even though she doesn't have to be, and I would argue it's not her fault. She just has it really, really, really hard. And of course, to make matters worse, like any good shonen, it shits on her. She's not a primary cast member, so of course she doesn't get her due. Now, what I mean by that is battle effectiveness. In anime, particularly in shonen anime where people are fighting all the time, there's this thing where people become useless except for the main character or maybe a reserve. In Rurouni Kenshin is the only person that's allowed to do anything except for, like, characters occasionally will get, like, kind of a victory, unless they were an enemy, in which case they're powerful and then become not powerful when they join up with the team. Saito gets to be the exception a couple of times because he's super badass and cool. Goku's the only one who really matters at the end of the day when it comes to a strong fight, even though a bunch of people used to be strong in the past. Get out of here, fuck off. You know, I'm talking about that. And to be clear, there are 3 fights, what I call fights that matter, don't you like my terminology, that I'm going to be focusing on as my main case for why the show shits on her being Soifon, pardon me, so terribly. Because you can give characters victories in fights that don't matter, but they don't matter, you know? If Yamcha beats a couple bandits in a short scene, that doesn't mean that he's strong. It means that the animators, writers, everybody was willing to throw him a bone that was ultimately inconsequential. At the end of the day, when Cell, the androids, Boo come walking around the corner, he's not gonna do jack shit to them, and we know this. Fights that matter. So there are 3 fights that matter. I would argue the 3 fights that matter in her career, because Soifon is not a primary character, so she's not involved in a whole lot of conflicts, straight up. There are times where she wins in fights that don't matter. However, there are 3 fights that are just awful, one of which she wins. But first, during the time where the protagonists are fighting against this soul society, one of the fights that we get to see is Soifon confronting Yoruichi, who happens to be with the protagonists. Soifon squares up against Yoruichi and tells her, hey, you know, it really hurt when you left me, but I'm here and I'm gonna do my job and I'm gonna kill you, you fucking traitor. She doesn't say it like this, obviously, but she does note that I have a new technique that I've been perfecting. It's not completely done, but it's gonna blow you out of the water. It combines magic with hand-to-hand. It's gonna be super cool. Let's go. Only for Yoruichi to turn to her and go, that sounds cool and all, but I already made that technique. Like, I already made it and perfected it. Why do you think our uniforms are backless? You know, those uniforms that you've been wearing like forever? It's done that way on purpose because of the technique that I perfected. You are years and years and years too late for this. Fuck. Like, fuck. Really? Jeez. The fight hasn't even started and already just blown out. Poor Soifon. So they fight, and because Yoruichi had to use a bunch of energy healing the protagonist or doing some fancy stuff earlier, this fight actually gets to be a fight, the implication being that Yoruichi is incredibly strong, and she is, and it wouldn't be a fight normally, which, sadly, it would not. But they fight, and just shy of me making an Itchy and Scratchy reference, ultimately Yoruichi wins, and the fight ends with Soifon being beaten and breaking down into tears and asking why Yoruichi didn't take her with her. An emotional moment, not exactly a good look for somebody, you know, looking to get respect. A bummer. A nice scene, but a bummer. And absolute paradise compared to the other 2 fights that matter that she gets. Because you see, the next time that she has a fight that matters, it's during a different arc where things are better, and the Soul Society is fighting against this enemy organization of bad guys who are trying to destroy this one town. During this fight, Yoruichi has to fight against somebody that doesn't matter and wins, but what really matters is when the big boys come out to play. And she, Soifon, ends up fighting the former organization's ruler, which is pretty cool. That's an awful lot of respect to place at Soifon's feet. Hey, you're not a primary character, but you're going to be beating this person. You're going to be fighting this person who is super strong. Well, hold on. This dude, who is really cool, I must say, this dude has a power, like it's a field around him, that when you enter it, you age rapidly until you're nothingness. So, perfect counter to her, to anybody, really, who uses melee weapons, though even range turns out not to work. It's terrible. Poor Soifon. She loses an arm finding out that she can't actually touch this person, and then tries to use magic on him, only for him to go, but magic eventually fades, even if it takes 10,000 years. you're fucking at a loss. Get out of here. He doesn't say it like that, but that's how I feel on the inside. Anyway, so that's terrible. She even resorts to using her bankai, which she doesn't like because I think she says it's ugly or it doesn't suit her, and it happens to be this big fuck-off cannon that has like a shield that she's behind as well, because I wonder why your ultimate ability turns out to represent wanting to stay far away from people while being protected. I can only wonder. Subtlety, subtlety, subtlety. Oh look, it's dead. It's still cool. But the thing is, she hates it, and it's a bummer. But she tries it anyway because she needs to try it, and even that doesn't work. Ultimately, she and some other rogue soul samurai who's part of a rogue faction that joined up with Soul Society for this battle ends up helping her to win. It's a victory, but it's a victory that costs your arm you ultimately couldn't do anything against and needed help from somebody else to achieve. Also known as what I would say is not a real victory. I mean, it is, but like, that's not fun. Other people get to win on their own. Why not Soifon? And why not against enemies that matter? Answer, no clue. No idea. So, that's a bummer. But it gets worse. Because you see, there's one fight. The last time I saw her fight in the manga, because the anime wasn't that far, and I fell off after this, or a little while after this, because God, the last arc is just so fucking lame and boring by like, I just can't even begin to tell you. And in this fight, it is preceded, I should say, this fight is preceded by a different fight where enemies come in and steal everybody's sword spirits, because those are important. It's a show about swords. You get the idea. So these people come in, steal people's sword spirits, and then there's another fight where people are confronted all over, but there's one guy that confronts Soifon and somebody else. I forget. And he's all like, I've stolen your sword spirits, and I'm going to use them against you. You stand no chance. And Soifon tells that person, actually, because you stole our sword spirits, it motivated me to finish my special hand-to-hand magic hybrid training. Now I've got my own technique, motherfucker. She doesn't say that part, but that's what I'm thinking. And now I'm going to use this technique that would uniquely be suited to the situation to beat you. Which is cool. If anybody should be capable of fighting without their sword spirit, it should be someone like Soifon. And then, not only does she lose, she gets jobbed off screen. Or rather, she jobs off screen. Doesn't even get a legit fight. Just one shot off screen. Boy, I hope nobody out there is making a big long rant about how Soifon deserves better, because this is going to be the cherry on top. Get out of here. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. The worst. Like, come on. It just sucks. Really, is my point. It just sucks. She logically works so hard and is under so much pressure and gets a bad rap because of things honestly out of her control. And then, what's her reward? A kind of win, 2 losses, some wins that don't matter. There are a handful. Some of them are in movies, but obviously that doesn't count because it's a movie. Nobody remembers the movies. Yeah. It just really sucks. And I think that, Soifon tries so hard, and she deserves better. She deserves more credit and a nice relationship with Yoruichi. I get the feeling that Yoruichi is more interested in the guy friend she originally ran off with, which must have been an extra kick in the balls, by the way. But like, come on. She deserves better is really the ultimate end of my sentence and the end of this. If you enjoy it, like, comment, subscribe. Just kidding. Don't do any of that. I'd really rather you save that attention for Treasure Takers, the thing that you've just watched me work on and watch me work on again next time.